You've heard the story 100 times. A shepherd boy defeats a terrifying giant with a slingshot and God on his side. Simple, right? But what if I told you everything about that story is wrong? What if I told you David wasn't the underdog, that Goliath wasn't invincible, and that this wasn't just a fight? It was a masterclass in psychological warfare, strategic thinking, and power dynamics. Today we're exposing the hidden truths that no one talks about. You're about to see this legendary showdown in a way you never imagined. Stick with me, because by the end, you might never look at David, or your own battles, the same way again. Goliath wasn't just big, he was unbelievably massive. The Bible says over 9 feet tall. He wore a helmet of bronze, a coat of scale armor that weighed around 125 pounds. His spear? The iron tip alone weighed 15 pounds. He had a shield bearer in front of him like a moving wall. This wasn't just any warrior, he was an ancient weapon system in human form. And David? A young teenager. No armor, no sword, just a sling and 5 smooth stones. It feels like the most one-sided matchup in human history. But here's where things flip. David had the upper hand. Yes, you heard that right. Because while everyone was focused on how big Goliath looked, David saw what nobody else could. This wasn't strength versus weakness, it was clarity versus confusion. Let's look closer at Goliath. Scholars now believe he may have suffered from a medical condition known as acromegaly, a hormonal disorder that causes abnormal growth due to excess growth hormone. It explains the giant stature, but it also causes serious downsides: blurred vision, double vision, slow movement, and fragile joints. And there's evidence right in the text. When David approaches, Goliath says, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" Plural. But David only had one staff. That's not poetic exaggeration, that's visual distortion. Goliath couldn't see properly. He was big, yes, but he was slow, visually impaired, and reliant on close combat. A walking fortress, but vulnerable from a distance. Goliath wasn't a predator. He was prey, if you knew how to hunt him. People love imagining David with a child's slingshot, winning by divine luck. But reality? That sling was a deadly weapon used by ancient armies. A trained slinger could hurl a stone at over 100 miles per hour with terrifying accuracy from up to 200 feet away. The stone David used wasn't a pebble. It was likely a dense ball of barium sulfate, common in the region, as dense as lead. In fact, ancient armies had entire divisions of slingers because they were just that effective. David wasn't improvising. He was trained, skilled, ready. His first strike wasn't an act of desperation. It was a precision kill shot. David didn't fight the giant. He executed the plan. Picture the battlefield. For 40 days, Goliath taunted Israel, daring someone to face him. 40 days of psychological dominance. Every soldier, trained, armored, experienced, refused. Why? Because they let fear choose their lens. But David wasn't just fearless, he was offensive. He didn't walk. He didn't hesitate. He ran toward Goliath, and that changed everything. Speed beats size, precision beats brute strength, confidence disrupts fear. The moment David rushed in, he shattered the rhythm of the fight. And let's not forget, David chose the battlefield. By refusing Saul's armor, he moved like lightning. Goliath expected a slow duel. Instead, he got a sniper strike. David didn't play the game. He rewrote the rules, and Goliath never had a chance. David wasn't lucky. He was strategic. He analyzed the situation. He studied the enemy. He rejected the king's armor, not just because it didn't fit, but because it wasn't useful for his approach. He used mobility, distance, and surprise. Think about it. Every soldier before him thought, "I have to fight Goliath like Goliath." That was the fatal mistake. But David? He flipped the paradigm. He knew Goliath's strengths and how to avoid them. He knew Goliath was dangerous up close but useless at range. So he used the one thing no one else thought to use: tactical distance. While others prepared for a sword fight, David trained for a sniper shot. Let's get real for a second. This wasn't just a victory, it was a strategic career move. David was already anointed by the prophet Samuel as the future king. But that promise needed credibility, action, a public win. When he took down Goliath, he didn't just gain respect, he gained national attention. Overnight, David became a symbol of courage, the guy who did what Saul and every other man refused to do. People sang his praises, literally. Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. That didn't just create admiration, it created jealousy, fear, and political momentum. The ripple effect of this one act eventually shifted the entire kingdom. David didn't just kill Goliath, he launched a revolution. Great leaders aren't always the loudest, or the strongest, or the most obvious. Sometimes they're the ones who see differently, think differently, and act when others stay paralyzed. David didn't have a throne. He didn't have armor. He didn't even have public approval at first. But what he had was vision, courage, and an understanding of the moment. That's why he didn't wait for orders. He moved. That's why he didn't conform to tradition. He adapted. And that's why he wasn't just a shepherd boy that day. He was a future king stepping into his moment. Leadership isn't declared. It's demonstrated. In the face of fear. We love underdog stories. But this one? It's more layered than that. David wasn't the weaker fighter who beat the odds. He was the better tactician who saw the truth. Goliath looked unbeatable, but he had massive flaws. The moral isn't believe in yourself and anything is possible. The real takeaway is this. Learn to see clearly. Don't get hypnotized by appearances. Strength isn't always loud, and power, it often hides in silence, in speed, in the element of surprise. David didn't defeat the giant, he exposed the illusion. Let's bring this home. How many Goliaths are standing in front of you right now? Big challenges, loud critics, impossible odds. Maybe it's career pressure, financial stress, anxiety, fear of failure. They look unbeatable. But what if they're just big, not strong? What if your greatest weapon isn't to match force with force, but to change the game? What if you stopped trying to fight fair and instead fought smart? David didn't match Goliath's energy. He forced Goliath to play his game. You don't need armor, you need accuracy. So now that you know the untold truth, the real question is this. What giant have you been avoiding because you didn't realize it was already vulnerable? What if the next big leap in your life isn't about getting stronger, but seeing clearer? David wasn't the hero because he was fearless. He was the hero because he moved when others paused. He acted when others analyzed. He trusted his tools when others doubted theirs. The real giant wasn't Goliath, it was hesitation. And David took that down too. If this redefined the way you see the story, imagine how many other legends are hiding deeper truths. Subscribe for more untold truths, reimagined history, and stories that shift perspective. Comment below. What giant are you facing? And what stone are you ready to throw? Because maybe, just maybe, your moment is now.